A polo shirt is sitting on your table, and you bought it 3 months ago for $130.
Premium price, premium store, premium presentation. You have washed it 6 times. 6 times in a machine, at the right temperature, with appropriate detergent, the collar is already rolling forward. The fabric is thinner than it looked under the store lights. The side seams have that familiar twist. The hem is starting to drift. The polo is 3 months old, and it already looks like a polo that has been used for 3 years, but the logo on the chest, still perfect, still the whole point. That is the polo trap. In 2026, it is more common than it has ever been. And today you are going to see exactly how it works and how to get out of it. 11 brands. One question at the center of everything. Does this polo cost what it costs because of the product or because of the logo? 6 brands that are money traps in 2026. Some obviously, some in ways you probably have not fully considered. 5 brands that actually earn what they charge or over-deliver for what they cost. This is not about hating famous names. It is about understanding which polos still deserve your money in 2026, and which ones have been living off reputation, nostalgia, or marketing for too long. Start with the criteria. Because before you can call anything a money trap, you have to understand what you are supposed to be buying. A polo shirt is a knit garment. It has fewer components than a dress shirt, fewer variables than a suit, and a simpler silhouette than almost anything else in a man's closet. That simplicity means the quality conversation is compressed into a small number of measurable factors, and most consumers have never been taught any of them. The first is fabric type and weight. Polo shirts come in several knit structures. Placket is the textured mesh associated with classic polo construction. It has natural breathability and visual body. Jersey is smoother and lighter, appropriate for some applications, but easy to produce cheaply. Interlock is denser and heavier, found in better quality garments. The weight, measured in grams per square meter, tells you the density of the fabric. A quality polo sits between 200 and 250 grams per square meter. Below 180, you are holding something that will thin out, pill, and lose its presence within months. The second factor is fiber quality. Standard cotton is not the same as long staple cotton. Pima and Supima are long staple varieties with smoother, stronger fibers. Sea Island cotton is the rarest and most refined of all. Long staple fibers resist pilling, hold dye better, and stay structurally intact through repeated washing. When a brand writes only 100% cotton on the label, they are telling you almost nothing. A brand with good fiber to talks about it. Third, the collar. A quality polo collar is constructed from a denser rib with enough tension and structural integrity to hold its shape. Through washing and heat, a cheap collar is a loose knit rib that migrates forward within the first few wears. Once it collapses, it does not recover, and you can test this in the store. Squeeze the collar between 2 fingers. If it compresses with almost no resistance and springs back slowly, it is already telling you its future. Fourth, the button placket. The strip of fabric running down the chest, where the buttons sit, should be reinforced. In a well-made polo, it is a firmer, separately constructed piece that does not pucker or wrinkle when worn. In a cheaper polo, it is just the same fabric folded over, and it will lose its alignment quickly. Fifth, side seams and torsion. Hold the polo from the hem and look straight up toward the collar. Do the side seams run vertically, or do they already show a slight forward twist? That twist, called lateral torsion,
is caused by low thread tension during construction. Wash the polo once and it becomes permanent. Sixth, price per use, not price per shirt. A $50 polo that holds its shape, color, and collar for 4 years costs less per wearing than a $120 polo that is presentable for 18 months. The math of the label is not the math of the closet. Apply all 6 criteria to every brand that follows. The results will surprise you on both sides of this list. Money trap number 1, Polo Ralph Lauren, standard line. The mythology is real. Ralph Lauren did not build a business. He built an idea of America and attached it to a shirt, the country club weekend, the prep school hallway, the inherited ease that money buys and then makes invisible. The polo player on the chest is not a decoration. It is the product, the shirt is the packaging, the standard Polo Ralph Lauren polo, classic fit, big pony, mesh, runs between $95 and $135 at retail, and the fabric is standard cotton piqué, manufactured offshore at volume. The grammature sits at the lower end of the acceptable range for the price point.
The collar rib is not structurally reinforced. The side seams are not treated for torsion resistance. Quality control across production runs is inconsistent. Buy the same style twice, and the fit can differ noticeably.
In 2026, you can understand this by looking within the brand itself. Study what Ralph Lauren charges. At the upper tiers of his portfolio, the RRL line, the purple label, the construction in those levels is categorically different. The standard polo line exists at the bottom of that hierarchy and is priced as though it sits in the middle. You are paying for proximity to the brand, not proximity to the quality the brand is actually capable of producing. The logo communicates status with precision. The polo beneath it is a standard garment, money trap number 2. This commercial preppy label. Tommy Hilfiger is a lifestyle brand operating at shopping mall scale. The store is designed to make the product look better than the product is, the presentation, the lighting, the folding, the brand color palette, all of it building an environment where a polo at $95 feels like a reasonable statement about who you are. The polo itself is standard cotton piqué with basic seam construction. The collar has no meaningful structural advantage over what a $40 alternative delivers. The button placket tends to wrinkle. The brand's manufacturing runs at PVH Corporation scale, the conglomerate that also owns Calvin Klein and manages a portfolio of brands with margin targets as the dominant brief. In 2026, Tommy Hilfiger exists as a 1990s cultural memory projected onto new product at current prices. The aesthetic is recognizable. The fabric and construction have not evolved at the same pace as the price. You are paying for the flags, the nostalgia, and the store experience. The polo is secondary. Money trap number 3, Lacoste standard line. This entry requires the most nuance because Lacoste is historically legitimate. René Lacoste invented the modern polo shirt. That is not mythology, that is documented history. In 1926, he replaced the uncomfortable formal tennis attire of the era with a soft cotton piqué garment designed for movement. The crocodile is one of the most authentic origin stories in menswear, which is exactly why the standard L.12.12 polo in 2026 at $110 to $130 is a genuinely difficult case to make. The fabric is 100% cotton petite piqué with a structured collar, technically better than what Tommy Hilfiger or Calvin Klein deliver at comparable prices. Lacoste does actual polo work, but in 2026, Lacoste also operates
under a licensing agreement with Devonlay for its clothing production. It is a brand that has expanded aggressively into performance lines, athleisure capsules, limited collaborations, and every market segment that can absorb a crocodile logo. That expansion has diluted the clarity and consistency of the core product. The price has grown faster than the construction has improved.
And the consumer paying $120 for the L12.12 now has alternatives at the same
or slightly higher price point that outperform it in grammature, collar engineering, and fiber quality.
Lacoste is not a fraud, it is a classic brand that has allowed its pricing to outpace its product.
And that is exactly what makes it a trap. You think you are making the right choice.
The heritage looks correct, but the product no longer fully justifies what the heritage is charging.
Money trap number 4, Calvin Klein. Calvin Klein is a licensing vehicle wearing the coat of a design house. The brand passed through the hands of PVH Corporation and operates today as a name applied to products manufactured by licensees with profit margins as the primary engineering consideration. The Calvin Klein Polo, particularly the jersey weight styles that dominate the line, runs $60 to $90. The fabric is thin, the grammature belongs on a $40 garment, the collar is a loose knit rib that begins rolling within weeks.
The side seams show torsion after the first wash. What Calvin Klein sells is the minimalist aesthetic. Clean, modern, no visible branding on many models, a suggestion of European understatement.
For a polo that must compete on construction and fabric rather than decoration, minimalism is a liability. There is nothing to hide behind when the product is the only thing speaking. The Calvin Klein Polo speaks quietly and does not have much to say. In 2026, the brand runs deep promotional discounts across department stores and outlet channels with a frequency that signals something specific about where the actual cost of production sits.
Relative to the retail ask, money trap number 5, Hugo Boss. Hugo Boss operates in what is arguably the most comfortable position in menswear marketing, the accessible luxury zone.
The pricing, typically $100 to $150 for a polo, sits high enough to feel premium to most consumers and low enough that the purchase does not demand the level of scrutiny a genuinely luxury price would invite. The result is a brand that charges luxury-adjacent prices while producing garments at a commercial construction standard.
The Hugo Boss Polo uses cotton piqué or jersey with a standard rib collar and basic seam construction.
The brand's positioning in suits and tailoring, where it does more credible work, creates a halo effect that the polo does not earn independently.
In Germany, the brand carries a cultural association with precision and engineering.
On a knit polo shirt, that association does not translate into better fiber weight, a more engineered collar, or superior seam construction. What it translates into is $120 for a garment that competes comfortably with alternatives at $60. The Hugo Boss Polo is not a bad shirt, it is a correctly priced $60 shirt sold for $120.
Because the brand created a positioning that makes the margin invisible, that is the definition of a money trap. Money trap number 6, and the most complicated case on this entire list. Brooks Brothers.
Brooks Brothers was founded in 1818. It is the oldest men's clothing retailer in America. It dressed presidents, shaped the look of the American professional class, and built a reputation for quality and durability over more than 2 centuries. The original Brooks Brothers polo has a legitimate place in the history of American menswear. In 2020, Brooks Brothers filed for bankruptcy, and the brand was acquired by Spark Group, a retail management holding company
that also controls Aeropostale and other distressed retail brands. Since the acquisition, production has been restructured, sourcing has been renegotiated, and the product line has been rebuilt under financial parameters different from the ones that created the brand's reputation.
In 2026, a Brooks Brothers polo retails for $80 to $120. The garment is presentable, but the Brooks Brothers name on the label is carrying 200 years of credibility, earned by a company that no longer makes the decisions,
The Polo, being sold under that name today, is a post-acquisition garment produced to current ownership's margin requirements, not the garment that built the reputation the price is referencing. Buying a Brooks Brothers polo in 2026 is paying for history that is no longer fully reflected in the product. The store looks the same, the name looks the same, the polo is different from the polo that earned the name.
That gap between the credibility a brand built over a century and the product it is currently delivering under new ownership
is the most sophisticated version of the money trap. It is invisible until you have worn the shirt a dozen times and begun to wonder why it does not feel like the brand you thought you were buying. Here is the structural reason the polo shirt is uniquely vulnerable to all 6 of these traps. A polo occupies a precise position in a man's wardrobe. It is casual enough for a Saturday, deliberate enough to look intentional,
simple enough that no man needs to think hard about wearing one. It reads as polished without inviting the scrutiny that a suit, a dress shoe, or even a dress shirt demands. You are not examining the lining.
You are not checking the welt. You are not comparing the canvassing to a reference point. And that absence of scrutiny is where the margin lives. A polo that looks like a premium polo in a well-lit store, folded correctly, presented properly, adjacent to aspirational imagery, can charge premium prices without delivering premium construction. Because the consumer rarely knows how to verify the claim at point of sale, and even more, rarely does. By the time the collar rolls and the fabric thins, the transaction is complete, and the brand has moved on to the next customer. When a garment looks formal enough to justify a high price, but is structurally simple enough to produce cheaply, it becomes the perfect margin vehicle. The polo is not the most expensive item in your closet. It may be the item where you are getting the worst deal. Dollar for construction dollar. That changes right now. Brand number 1 on the worth it side, Peter Millar. Peter Millar began as a golf brand, and that origin matters. A polo that collapses on the 14th hole in 90-degree heat does not get reordered by a serious golfer. That accountability shapes the product from the ground up. The Crown Soft Polo is the piece to know. It uses Peruvian Pima cotton blended at a fabric weight that is immediately noticeable. There is genuine body to the garment, a density that signals the fiber quality before you put it on. The collar is a structured rib knit with enough tension to hold its geometry through washing cycles. The button placket is reinforced, the side seams are correctly tensioned, the color is consistently reproduced across the line. Peter Millar polos run $100 to $125. That is a premium where the money is demonstrably in the product. The fiber, the construction, the collar engineering, the brand logo is small and secondary. The garment speaks first. After 30 washes, a Peter Millar Crown Soft Polo still has a collar that points where it is supposed to point. That is the only performance test that ultimately matters. Brand number 2, Gran Sasso. Gran Sasso has been producing knitwear in Pescara, Italy since 1952. It is not a brand most American consumers know by name. It is a brand that serious buyers of Italian menswear recognize immediately by touch. The polos use long staple Egyptian and Peruvian cotton at grammatures that are perceptibly different from everything on the first half of this list. So the collar construction is a double rib structure with internal stabilization, meaning the collar has enough structural mass to hold its shape through repeated washing without collapsing. The seams are precisely tensioned and flat. The dyeing produces color with a depth and consistency that commodity alternatives cannot replicate. Gran Sasso polos sit between $120 and $160. At that price, you are receiving what every aspirational brand on the money trap side claims to deliver and does not. There is no visible branding doing social work. The garment is the entire argument for itself. Brand number 3, Rhone.
Rhone is an American brand built on an explicit materials and performance commitment.
It does not sell aspiration through imagery. It sells fabric transparency and construction accountability. And in 2026, that approach produces a polo that outperforms most brands, charging twice as much in actual wearing conditions. The Rhone Polo uses performance fabric technology designed to manage heat, moisture, and movement without deforming. The collar construction is tested for shape retention under conditions, heat, compression, sweat, that are far more demanding than a standard cotton polo is ever evaluated against. The seam construction is clean and flat. Rhone polos run between $95 and $130. For the man wearing his polo in real conditions, this price point offers performance tailored for everyday wear. Summer heat, travel, outdoor work, a day that runs long, the Rhone is the polo that performs where the others give up. The price per use is competitive with anything at twice the retail price. This is an honest brand.
It does not claim to be an Italian atelier, it claims to build a polo that works. In 2026, that is a credible and valuable offer. Brand number 4, Sunspell. Sunspell is the benchmark for this entire category. It is not the most accessible option on this list. But it is the answer to the question of what the polo shirt can actually be when a brand's primary investment is in the material rather than the marketing. Sunspell was founded in Britain in 1860. They were producing luxury knitwear before most of the brands on the money trap side of this list existed as companies. The polo they make in 2026 uses Sea Island cotton, a fiber grown in a narrow band of the Caribbean basin, one of the rarest natural fibers in commercial production, with a length and fineness that produces a fabric closer in hand feel to silk than to commodity cotton. The resulting polo does not pill, it does not thin. It holds color through washing cycles that destroy cheaper alternatives. The collar is engineered to maintain its structure through years of use. The seam construction is precise and flat. A Sunspell polo runs $180 to $240.
That number is real. Not every man reaches for it without thinking, but what you receive for that investment is not in the same category.
As what the money trap brands charge $120 for, it is a different object. It performs at a different standard. In year 4, it still looks like what you paid for.
The cost per wearing, calculated honestly, is lower than a Ralph Lauren polo that degrades in 18 months.
This is what premium means in 2026, a product that earns its price every time you put it on. Brand number 5, Uniqlo.
Uniqlo is not aspirational. There is no lifestyle being sold, no mythology, no prestige event, no ambassador holding a racket.
Uniqlo is a Japanese brand that made a structural decision to invest capital in supply chain and material sourcing instead of advertising spend.
And that decision is visible in the product. The Supima cotton polo is the result.
Supima is certified American long staple cotton, representing less than 1% of global cotton production. The fiber is longer, stronger, and smoother than standard cotton. It resists pilling, it holds color through washing cycles that degrade most alternatives. The fabric weight on the Uniqlo Supima polo is appropriate. There is body to the garment, a presence that most polos at 3 times the price do not achieve. The price is $30 to $40. In 2026, that number is the clearest proof of concept on this entire list. The man spending $120 on a Hugo Boss polo that degrades in 18 months is spending more per wearing than the man who paid $35 for a Supima Uniqlo that holds its shape, color, and collar for 3 years. The math is not close. The logo is the only missing element. If the logo is what you are buying, the Uniqlo is not the answer. If the polo is what you are buying, the Uniqlo is one of the most rational purchases in men's clothing in 2026. Now put 2 polos side by side and hold them there. A Hugo Boss polo at $120.
Standard piqué, accessible luxury positioning, recognizable branding, competent but unexceptional construction. The collar will show migration within months.
The fabric will thin toward the end of year 2. Across from it,
A Gran Sasso Polo at $140. Long staple cotton, double rib collar with internal stabilization, precisely tensioned seams, deep consistent color. The collar holds through years of washing. The fabric maintains its body and presence through regular use. The price difference is $20. The performance difference is years of wear. The man paying $20 more for Gran Sasso is not spending more, he is spending smarter. Or look at the other end of the scale. Tommy Hilfiger at $95, selling lifestyle in flags, built to a standard that does not justify the price. Against a Uniqlo Supima Polo at $35, built from a superior fiber to a more honest construction standard. The gap is $60 per shirt. After 3 shirts, you have spent $180 on this designer brand and bought a Mythology 3 times. Or you have spent $105 on Uniqlo and owned 3 polos that outlast the Mythology by years. In 2026, the polo that earns respect is not the one that costs the most. It is the one that delivers the most for what it costs. Before you buy the next polo, ask yourself 6 questions in the store. Press the collar between 2 fingers. Is there structural resistance, or does it compress immediately and sit flat? A collar without resistance in the store will roll forward after the first washing, and there is no fix for it. Hold the polo against a light source, and does the fabric block the light, or can you see through it? A polo that transmits light in the store will transmit your undershirt when you are wearing it. That transparency belongs on a $30 garment, not a $100 one. Check the button placket. Does it lie flat and firm, or does it already show puckering along the edge? A placket that wrinkles before you wear the shirt will not stop wrinkling after. Look at the side seams from the bottom hem.
Are they vertical? Even a slight forward twist in the store becomes a permanent torsion after one wash.
Read the label for fiber type, not just fiber content. 100% cotton tells you almost nothing. Pima, Supima, or Sea Island tells you something real. If the brand does not specify, they are not investing in the fiber.
And ask the final question before you take anything to the counter. Would you pay this price if the logo were removed? If the honest answer is no, if the price exists because of the name and not because of the fabric,
The collar, the construction, or the durability, you already know exactly what you are holding. A polo in 2026 should not be judged on the hanger.
It should be judged after 30 washes, after summer travel, after a week of daily wear, after 2 years in regular rotation.
those are the conditions that reveal whether the price was in the product or in the logo. The brands that pass that test are on the second half of this list. The ones that do not are on the first. The distance between them is not always visible in the store. It is always visible in the closet. Ask better questions. Buy fewer polos. Buy the ones that last.